Hi everyone, Bill McMillan here. In this clinic we're going to go ahead and learn how to use static grass using the shaker style applicator. I'm going to show you some variations, some hopefully helpful hints, and how to do it the right way, at least my way. So let's get started. Static grass can be applied in a number of different ways. One of these ways is in patches, as you can see here, where I've put the static grass into in the between the ties on the railroad track. Or, as you can see here, I've applied it into a much more rustic field type of an application, where you can see bare spots and some rocks and tree limbs and things like that. Or we can apply it so it's very thick and nice and even, much like this, which would represent a mowed lawn. Hi everyone. Well, in order to get started, we certainly need to have the correct equipment. So let me run this by you. First thing that we need is our static grass applicator. Now, this one is manufactured by Woodland Scenics. You've probably seen many of these around. The reason why we call it a shaker applicator is because you actually shake the material down onto the surface of the layout. So it comes with a number of accessories. This is the grounding cable, and it just very simply plugs into the unit like this. Then it comes with three different grates or covers that the static grass is going to fall through. We have one that's a little bit wider for the larger length material. It also comes with a smaller grid with a smaller length, shorter lengths. And it comes with one that's split. Half of it is the small size, the other half is the large size. In order to use that, it also comes with this divider that goes into the area where you will put your grass material. So you can actually do two different sizes at the same time. Do two different colors at the same time, for instance. Now, while I've got these covers off, I just wanted to show you something. Inside of this hopper for the static grass, I also include a couple of little nuts. And these nuts are there, I found, to help break up any clumps. And it also seems to assist in giving the grass a static charge. You can hear them rattling around. Now, one thing that I want you to be aware of is that this static grass applicator was originally designed to be powered by a 9-volt battery. And so when I first got it, that's what I did. I put a brand new fresh Duracell 9-volt battery in it, and I was very, very disappointed at the outcome. Not enough static produced. So what I highly recommend is you go ahead and also buy the wall adapter. Now this puts out 12 volts, which greatly increases the amount of static that this machine will generate. It's only another $10 or so, but it is absolutely well worth it. The kit also comes with this comb. So I guess the anticipation is that after the glue dries or starts drying up almost before it's hardened, you can go ahead and groom your static grass. I've never used it. I just use it for my sideburns. The other thing that comes with the static grass machine is this adapter. And I'll show it to you when we get to the layout. It's something that you just set. It's cast iron. You set it down on the layout. It has a prong here where you can clip the grounding cable to. It works, but I found it kind of gets in the way. So what I end up doing most of the time is, if it's a small area I'm working on, I'll just hold the grounding cable right to the surface of the layout. Or I'll use T-pins. Stick a T-pin in there and clip your grounding cable to it, and it'll work out just fine. Now, another thing that we're certainly going to need is some glue. Elmer's is my choice. I know that Woodland Scenics does make a special glue. It's a white glue, but it is very expensive. Okay, check around. You can find these gallon jugs of Elmer's for anywhere from $10 to $20. The price varies. If you get coupons, even better. But I've found it to work absolutely the best. And later on, I'm also going to show you how I use this Elmer's glue and dilute it out so that it functions just like that Woodland Scenic cement. Now, the other thing that you're going to need, of course, is some static grass. I do like to use the Woodland Scenics brand. It's readily available at most hobby shops, and even the craft stores are carrying it because they usually end up carrying most of the Woodland Scenics craft materials. So you go ahead. It comes in 2mm length, 4mm length, 7mm length, and 12mm length. Now, if you're not quite sure what length to get, on the back of each package is a conversion table. Now, this conversion table will give you the size of the grass in the various scales. For instance, 2mm in N scale is 1 inch static grass. HO scale, I'm sorry, N scale is 1 foot. The HO scale is 7 inches high, and O scale is 4 inches high, all the way up to the 12mm, which will give you some very tall weeds. In HO, for instance, 12mm comes out at 3.5 foot. So, good, strong, tall weed for those overgrown fields. And you can vary these. The other thing, remember, is that the static comes in different colors. So you've got dark greens, light greens, medium greens, and we also have a couple of different browns that is referred to on the package as straw color, to represent, of course, dead weeds, dead grass, and things like that. So take a look. I'm going to try and put up some close-ups for you to take a better look at this stuff. Okay? Now, that's all the materials that we really need to get started with. So let's go back over to the layout and let's start covering some landscaped areas. One of the things that I have done is I purchased this little tool cart. I picked it up at Harbor Freight, I think. Relatively inexpensive, but it allows me to put all my materials for doing my ground scenes, the static grass. There's some ground cover material and ground foam, some glues in bottles. Easy bottles. Usually what I use are those condiment bottles. you know, you'd normally put ketchup and mustard and so on and so forth. You can pick those up any place also. One of the other things that I did forget to mention was there is another tool that you're going to need, and that is a small vacuum. This one is a Shark. The reason why you need that is because when you're shaking all that material out, it does go everywhere. So you're going to have to vacuum it up after you put it down. And it also helps to straighten the static grass into a more vertical position. This one, of course, has the collecting cup here, which is what you want to have so that you can just open that up and reuse that material that you vacuumed up. Okay. And first thing we're going to need to do is put some glue down onto the surface. So as I said, I put the glue, and this is just full strength Elmer's in a condiment bottle so that I can squeeze it out. And I also have a little 1-inch chip brush to better spread the glue where I want it to be. So we'll go ahead and put the glue down. Put it on pretty thick. You're going to want to really cover this area pretty well with glue. You need to have that gluey surface so that your static grass has something to hook onto. So we'll just spread that out. And you can see it's pretty thick. I'm going to put some glue up into the ballast area, into the sandy area here. No problem. Just like that. So to start with, I'm just going to use this relatively small area for us to get started with. There you go. I'll just put my glue brush into some water so it doesn't harden. Now you can see I've loaded up my static grass machine. I put in some straw colored, and I think this is 7mm. I've plugged into my power supply. Here's my grounding cable. Now, as I said, we can use this, but you can see it's kind of cumbersome and it's in the way a little bit. So, as I said, what I like to use are T-pins. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the grounding cable to this T-pin over here. Turn the machine on. When it turns on, this light comes on to show you that it's ready to go. And then we're just going to go ahead and staying about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. I'm just going to cover the area by shaking the material over the glued area. Now you'll see that it does go just about everywhere. My ground cable just came loose. Put it back in. There we go. And that's about all I need for the brown color. So we'll turn her off and reload with some green material. Okay. Now I've loaded up the machine with some medium green, so we're going to go ahead and put that down, turn on our device, just start shaking over the area. Again, trying to keep it around 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Get that real good. Make sure that we're all covered. And then if you just kind of go over a little bit, it'll bring up some of those lazy tufts and help them to stand more erect. Okay. Now you can see this is the area we just did, and if I show you a little bit closer, you can see how the grass fibers have gone off into areas where we really don't want them to be. So that's why we're going to bring out the vacuum, and we'll get that vacuumed up, and then we'll let that glue dry. Okay. Now you can see I've got the vacuum out, so we're just going to vacuum up this area very carefully. Okay, now you can see that looks pretty good. Got all that excess grass from away from my ballasted areas. Here's the area that we did. We're going to let that dry, and we'll come back to it. And if needed, we can always add more grass to that area. But we have to do a little bit of a special technique, and I'll show you how to do that when we come back. Now this has had time to dry overnight. You can see it's really quite nice. You can see the dead grass laying underneath the greener new grass. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of dark green grass, more in very limited areas, like right here, maybe a little over here, and just a touch here. Maybe only in those 3 spots, maybe 4. Put one out. Little tufts to add a little bit of contrast. And I'll show you how we do that. Now what I'm going to use is a 50-50 mixture of white glue and water. And I've also added about a tablespoon or so, maybe a teaspoon, I'm sorry, of Dawn liquid detergent, you know, the dish detergent stuff, and that helps the glue to flow instead of bubbling up, releases the surface tension of the water. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this glue, and I'm just going to put it into a dot or so of the areas where I want to put the darker grass. Something like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a stiff bristle brush and just kind of make sure that the grass surrounding has been coated. And what's going to happen is when I put the darker grass onto here, it will go ahead and attach itself to the existing bristles of the static grass that's already been around, and it will increase the height. Okay, that's ready to go. Put the brush in some water so it doesn't harden. Grass applicator. Get my cords out of the way here. And we'll go ahead and just sprinkle where the glue is. Some of this darker colored, longer grass into those areas. There we go. Now, we'll let that dry for a while. Okay. Now I think you can see the subtle difference with adding that darker color for contrast. Really brings up some of the detail of the overall grass area. Just little changes like that tend to make a big difference. Now, In this area, as I continue on, I'm going to change things up a little bit. I'm not going to cover this completely with static grass. I'm going to use just a little bit of this ground cover material, and I'm going to put in a few rocks, larger stones, larger rocks that I picked up from somebody's driveway. Alright, I put the glue down, set in a couple of stones that I like for rocks. Notice I also went ahead and ballasted up this track. It's pretty much a buried piece of track because this is the runaround for the spur. And in between the ties I cut up some of my static grass mat that I make using the Pro style horizontal static grass machine. I have another clinic on that, so you can look on my website, on my YouTube site, and see how to make these grass mats, and just cut it up and glue it in there. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to put down a little bit of ground foam and a little bit of dirt, so just to kind of change things up a little bit. I like the use of this coarse ground foam just to break things up. Cover a pretty good area there, so actually then I won't get any static grass in that area. That's all we're going to do there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in some dirt in some larger areas, and of course the static won't cling to that either, just to show dead spots. Okay, that should do that. Now I'll get the static grass ready. I think I'll put down some light color first, and then I'm going to come over immediately with some dark green. And we'll get our static grass ready. I'll put in my ground using a T-pin, turn it on, and we're ready to go. Okay, that's about it for the light green. Now we'll go ahead and reload and put on the dark green. Let's go ahead and put on the dark green. And all my edges covered up real nice. Of course, you notice it's static, it sticks everywhere, but when you go over and vacuum, you'll see that it picks up the excess, so it'll look nice and cleaned up. Okay, just about got her. That should do it. Now, we're going to let that dry overnight, and then we'll take a look at it tomorrow and see if we want to add any more or put anything else in there. Okay. Well, this is what our areas look like now after they've dried. I've vacuumed up our second area that we just did recently, and it's looking pretty good. You can see the variations in texture and in color. Now, Certainly this is something that you're going to be a little bit apprehensive about the first time you try it, but that's alright. You just go ahead, take an old piece of cardboard, take an old piece of plywood, throw down some ground goop on it, or a brown colored dirt painting, and try some of this static grass. Experiment with it. Use different sizes. You don't have to stay with 2mm or 4mm just because you're an N gauge or HO gauge. Go ahead, try the larger. Some of this stuff that's actually on here is 12mm, and you can see that it doesn't stand up a straight 12mm, so give it a shot. Do some variations in the topography, like I said before, too. And I think you'll end up really having a good time with this, and it adds something that's can become quite a focal point for your layout. So give it a try, and thanks for watching. Don't forget, these clinics are always saved to my YouTube channel, so please visit my channel. It's youtube.com/@Dr. Bill's Productions, and I put the link up on the final video frame on these clinics. Like I say, thanks for watching.